Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Jessie. I do bookish lifestyle and planning content here on YouTube. I am sorry if you can tell that I am sick. My son is sleeping, so I am trying to keep the volume a little low, but today is a bookish video that I am so excited to film, and that is my top 12 book series that to where I am today, with a few honorable mentions. So without further ado, let's dive in. Grab yourself a beverage, a snack, because this may be a long one. I typed up notes for this one, okay? So let's get started. We have to start with Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. This is set in a world where you are divided by blood. So if you're red-blooded, you're just a regular human, and if you're silver-blooded, you're one of nobility, and this also accompanies powers. Now, this is normally, or from what you see in the series, it's mostly genetic. A lot of families have specific abilities, like there's Evangeline. I won't say who she is, but she deals with metal, and most of her family's powers are metal related, if that makes sense. We follow Mare, who is a thief, and for some of her choices, it's led to her sister being injured, and Mare ends up taking a job at the castle where a tournament is going on to, I guess, see the eligibility for the crowned prince. I'm going to put this down so I'm not waving it around. While this tournament is going on, Mare is working, and she somehow trips and falls into the arena or the pit where this tournament is taking place. In doing so, it is revealed that she also has powers. Now, this is very concerning because Mare has red blood, and the royal family needs to do some damage, so they concoct this story about how she is part of this long-lost family. She is now finding herself betrothed to the second-born prince. Now, there's a rebellion going on, political intrigue, we have like the high school bullshit, petty girl stuff happening, there's a love triangle, there's romances going all around. I really love this series, and I know that there's been a big wave about it recently with the whole powerless nonsense, which my stance on it is pretty clear. You can't rip off a series if the one you're claiming that ripped you off came first. That's my stance on that. But anyways, I love this series. I love the series as a whole. Red Queen is probably my favorite, and I do have the first novella and, what is it, Broken Throne? I'm not gonna see it, but I love the entire series. Victoria Aveyard as an author, it's like herself, is extremely humble and very nice, and I love her stance on a lot of things, so I just really connected with her as a person as well as her work. Okay, next is the Violet Eden chapters, I think it's called. Violet Eden chapters, and it is by Jessica Shiverington. Now, I reread this series every single year and have really since it came out, because I was rereading it every single time there was a new book released, and it is so close and dear to my heart. So we follow Violet Eden, who her mother died in childbirth. When we start this book, it is her birthday. Her dad is a workaholic. He leaves her very independent, borderline on neglecting his daughter. On this particular birthday, Violet receives a gift from her father, which is actually from her mother, that she requested Violet get on this birthday. This present leaves Violet with more questions than she had before about her mother and herself and, you know, kind of life. Then she meets Phoenix. Phoenix is our love interest. There is another kind of like love triangle going on here. There is a whole slew of dominoes that is set off involving Lincoln and Steph and a bunch of other people. It makes Violet aware of a war going on between hunters and light and dark angels. It makes her question what truly is good and evil. And I love this series so much because it really puts that into perspective in many different situations. And I really love the concept that Shiverington has done within regards to the light and dark angels. How, you know, God and angels and, you know, the lore around that, I'll call it lore, surrounding that, because I think she's done it amazingly and so tastefully. She just did a really good job, and it is today one of my favorite series, again, that I reread every single year. Okay, next is the Shifter series by Rochelle Vincent. We follow Faith, and Faith is a cougar shifter. This was my second kind of dabble into shifter series. The first we'll talk about later. Faith has made a deal with her father to leave the Pride, as they are cat shifters essentially, cougar shifters, live as a normal human girl for a certain amount of years. But when tabbies go missing from other prides, her father sends her ex-fiance to retrieve her and bring her back home. Faith is obviously very resistant to this, but again, does understand why. We follow Faith's entire journey with figuring out who she is, learning how to deal with conflict within her family, within other prides, you know, figuring out love. And it's just a really like heart-wrenching but beautiful journey to watch, because and I know so many others actually relate to Faith in so many different ways. I really love her story and how Rochelle Vincent has chosen to tell it. I mean, all of these are my favorite, but the Fallen Kingdom series by Morgan Rhodes is very much at the top of this list because, one, Morgan Rhodes is a fellow Canadian, and two, the world and magic system and the characters that she has created, I could never. And one, I could never because I am not her, but second, she is just a fantastic storyteller. I mean, like, that's really what it comes down to, right? So we follow four different characters in this series from different parts of Mythica. First, we follow siblings Magnus and Lucia, and they are from Limeros, where their father rules with an iron fist. He rules with fear, and they very much need to calculate every single step that they take. Lucia also figures out a dangerous secret that she needs to keep close to her heart. And Magnus is maybe realizing the king that his father is, he may not want to be. Next, we follow Princess Cleo, who for the very first time has experienced violence and murder, and this murder sets her country into chaos and she needs to flee. Third, we follow a regular citizen who is poor, Jonas, who with a bunch of people kind of rebel against his country and finds himself at the head of a rebellion. This series is full of obviously political intrigue. It's full of found family and friends and betrayal. There's a obviously magical aspect to things, a whole other slew of characters that I can't get into because I will not spoil it for anybody. It is young adult, as there are more explicit things like murder and violence, but I really love this series as a stepping stone into high fantasy because you do have that aspect of, I mean, the world and the magic system obviously, but you dip your toes into following different POVs. That's more than just like a romance, like one or two characters, and it's done in such a beautiful way that I never wonder who I'm reading from because I'm confused, because Rhodes has like singularly made each character entirely different, so you know exactly who is speaking or who you're reading from, if that makes sense. It's just done very beautifully. Okay, next is Crown of Feathers by Nikki Poperetto. Beautiful story about two sisters, one who is very bossy and secretive, and one that is just doing what she's told because she knows nothing else. They are orphans, and one knew their parents and one has no idea what their parents were like. They are raised by a grandmother, but who's not actually family, but someone who knew their parents. And when the sisters decide to part ways because of an incident that happens, one we don't really hear from until later, but two, the second younger daughter, we more so follow. And we follow her as she tries to fulfill her dream of becoming a Phoenix Rider. I love this series or trilogy because Preto has made a beautiful story of weaving in two different timelines so seamlessly and dropping hints and foreshadowing that like makes you think, hey, why was this said? And you can kind of guess at it, but you can be completely wrong or completely right. And I love that as an author to read, because I don't know about anybody else, but as an author, but also as a reader, when I watch movies that are like mysterious or, you know, like there is a twist coming, I can normally tell it a mile away, and I'll call it, and then we'll watch it. My husband's like, why'd you have to do that to me? So I very much loved that you didn't know exactly what was going to happen, but you had like a feeling something was going to happen. And like I said, you could be completely right or completely wrong, and you had no idea which direction it was going. I loved it. It was a ride, and I recommend it to pretty much everybody I know. Okay, next is a classic, Percy Jackson and the Olympians. One, I discovered this series so long ago, and I fell in love. As someone who also was diagnosed a little bit later on, like in college, I knew that something was wrong, so I got myself tested, and turns out that I'm dyslexic. I also have ADHD. So I knew that I had ADHD from a very young age, so that alone really connected me to Percy and the other demigods. But the dyslexic aspect came in later, and it made me have a very newfound love for this series. And I love that Riordan kind of wrote this for his own child and how they felt a little bit different, and he wanted them to feel like they were invincible and there was nothing wrong with them. So he wrote these characters, these demigods who have these setbacks in everyday society, but in reality they're freaking superheroes, and they are, you know, related to these mythical Roman and Greek gods. And it really solidified something in my heart that made me feel like, okay, like this is really cool. And I had never read a book or a series, especially as a young adult, that I connected to so much because of the things that made me different. And I really loved that aspect. So we follow Percy, who is a regular kid who has bounced around and been suspended from school to school, who has ADHD and dyslexia. He one day finds himself at a museum with his class. He, out of nowhere, is, you know, reading Greek things, has no idea how he's doing this. And then next thing you know, he's being attacked, and his teacher is no longer his teacher but a horse, and his best friend is no longer human but has goat legs. And then he's fighting this mythical creature. Rover, his best friend, then takes him to his mom, and he's like, hey, we gotta go. She's like, okay. Then they're driving. She tells him this story about his dad and how they met and he's special, and then they get attacked by another mythical creature. His mom's being squished to who knows where, thinking that she's dead, and then he wakes up at Camp Half-Blood having no idea what's going on. Also, none of that is a spoiler. It happened with the first few chapters. So we follow Percy on his journey to eventually get his mom back and fulfill this prophecy that he hears from an oracle. It is the next day because life happened and my son woke up from his nap. And it was a crazy afternoon with him. So, again, got my tea. It is morning nap right now, so hopefully I can get this done. We will start off with the Sarah J. Maas verse. I'm not going to go through all of these. Everybody and their mother knows about the whole Maas verse at this point. If you don't, just Google it, type it into TikTok, YouTube, Goodreads, anywhere, it'll come up. I will say though, my favorite series as a whole from the Massverse is Throne of Glass, then Crescent City, then A Court of Thorns and Roses. Next, again, I'm not going to explain it, the Empyrean series, Rebecca Yarros. I really put off reading Fourth Wing for like a year or 2 years because I heard so much about it. I also heard that it's an all or nothing thing. I also heard from multiple people that it was like storyline sex, storyline plot sex, and there was like no cohesion. There wasn't really a storyline. Those people lied to me. So I very much enjoy that series. Next, we'll talk about a classic, which is The Vampire Academy by Rochelle Mead. I started reading this series when it came out. I saw it in the bookstore like on release day or like a few days after release day. Decided to pick it up, fell in love, and that was really my first introduction to vampires, actually. So that was really cool, and I loved the like guardians, like the Dampiers and the vampires, but like there's good and bad vampires because there's the regular Moroi and then there's the Strigoi. And I really loved that aspect of good and evil with a symbol that has classically and historically been evil. So we follow Rose Hathaway, who is a Dampier, who is a guardian, and her charge will be Lissa, or Vasilissa, when they graduate, is idea, or what is known but not officially spoken of. And we follow them as they have run away from the academy and are living in the normal world because they believe that there is a plot to wipe out the Vasilissa's family line. Prior to the story, they all, Rose, Lissa, and her family, her mother, father, and brother, were in an accident that took all of their lives, and Rose and Lissa lived. Well, the Strigoi find them, and so do the Moroi from the Academy and the Guardians, and bring them back to the Academy. And it is classic high school. There are cliques, bullying, like pettiness, but there is also worry because the Moroi manifest elemental magic. Lissa hasn't manifested yet, or has she? And has the element she's manifested good or bad? And you kind of go through their journey as they figure out life. Okay, next is the Grishaverse by Leigh Bardugo. Again, I'm not going to go into this, but my favorite is the Six of Crows duology, the King of Scars duology, and then Shadow and Bone trilogy. Okay, then we have the Summoner series by Taran Mitharu. I love this trilogy. And then there's like another book or another 2 books following a different character. But the first book is The Novice, and we follow Fletcher, who is a blacksmith's apprentice. He lives in this tiny little village. He's an orphan and who was taken in by the blacksmith. One day he comes across a man who is selling some goods. He sees this book that he doesn't quite believe is the book that this guy is claiming to be. Anyways, he later finds the book in his possession, and he figures out that he has this rare ability to summon demons. Well, some things go awry. Fletcher is accused of a crime he did not commit, but he is forced to leave his village in search of the academy, I guess you could say, where he will train to become a battle mage. So his new demon Ignitus are journeying to this academy where he eventually ends up and starts to train to be a battle mage to fight against the war against the orcs. There he encounters goblins, other humans, as well as elves and a few other creatures. And this was so good. It's a middle grade. I loved it so much. I think I've reread the trilogy 3 or 4 times now, and I know that I very much enjoy a series when I reread it more than twice. So it is very good. I highly recommend it. I think that it's a beautiful story. We also you know, follow Fletcher in this academy where he is again bullied. He's, you know, with nobility, and he's another outcast in this place. We also kind of figure out his lineage and his journey, and where he comes from, as he's an orphan. So I think it's really beautiful. We have found family, you know, some politics, mystery, intrigue, and I think that it's really cool, on top of this big, you know, training to be a battle mage to fight orcs and how the war started. And I think it's a really beautiful story. Matharu is such a wonderful storyteller. Okay, then we have the Mercy Thompson series by Patricia Briggs. This series is probably in my top 3 of all time. You gotta save the best for last, right? So the Mercy Thompson series follows Mercy Thompson, who is a VW mechanic, and she works at a garage. In this world, she is a coyote shifter. She's not a werewolf, she's not a shapeshifter, she's a coyote shifter. It's very imperative to note. It is different. She is Native American, and she also lives beside an alpha and his human daughter, Adam and Jesse. She also has a best friend, or what she would classify as a best friend. He probably doesn't, but his name is Stefan, and he owns a VW bus that is identical to the Mystery Machine, which is freaking awesome. And he is also a vampire. So we have different creatures, as I said, werewolves, vampires, we have humans. So everything that's not like a shifter or a vampire is pretty much classified as fae in this world. So we follow Mercy, and one day a young man comes in. He's clearly younger than he's saying he is. He's clearly given a fake name, but he's also clearly abundantly running from something, as he is a new werewolf. She offers him some work and kind of feeds him, clothes him. His trouble ends up catching up to him, and Mercy figures out kind of what's going on and enlists the help of Adam. So throughout the entire series, it is a very long series, I will say. There are books still being published in this series. I think Patricia Briggs is at 13 or 14, but let me say, every single book is vastly different but follows an amazing storyline. Every single book is beautifully written. Some focus more on vampires, some is more like werewolf politics, some is more internally for Mercy. There's always kind of a theme to the novels. Also, I will say this series is 18 plus. There are some very adult themes that happen throughout this series, so please read the trigger warnings on some of the books. But Patricia Briggs is one of the, we'll say, co-founders of paranormal romance. I really think that she really has paved the way for paranormal romance with those group of authors. Her mind is phenomenal in how, you know, she's still weaving and crafting this beautiful story of Mercedes Thompson. And again, one of my top 3 series of all time. Alright, now I have some honorable mentions. So I have the Immortal Instrument series by Cassandra Clare, all of Kelly Armstrong, again a fellow Canadian, but I very much love her Underworld, or Women of the Underworld. I very much loved the Darkest Power trilogy, as well as the Age of Legends trilogy, which I met Kelly Armstrong at an Indigo at a book signing that she did for one of her new releases, and she signed a few books, but she signed my favorite book on my favorite page of my favorite chapter. So that was really, really cool, and a moment that I will cherish forever. She is so down to earth and humble, and meeting her was truly a dream come true. Really kind of solidified in my mind that I wanted to be a storyteller, but I didn't know at all how to do that. the Snow Like Ashes trilogy by Sarah Rosh. I love the Falconer series by Elizabeth May. Last but not least, the only like high fantasy series on this list, which is the Lightbringer series by Brent Weeks. Again, a very close to my heart favorite. So those are my top 12 series of all time with a few honorable mentions. I hope that you gained some inspiration for your next read. Let me know if you have read any of these books and enjoyed them, or read them and didn't enjoy them. Favorite books of other people that I don't particularly like. And I love hearing other people's points of view. So thank you so much for watching this video. Like it if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you want to become of our slow but growing family here on YouTube. It makes my heart so happy to have every single one of you here. And I will catch you guys in my next video. Bye!